Stories of a Death Collector, Episode 7. What if a soul is not able to move on to the other side? What if a spirit stays within its dead body? Our limited way is not the full story. Your near-death experience and what you may have seen is not the whole picture. If you had a near-death experience and all you remember of it was blackness and nothingness, do not despair. That fortunately is not a sign that there is nothing after death and on the other side. If you've seen fireworks, shining buildings and heaven as described in the Bible, that is also just a limited vision of what is there and what is still to come. My name is Ariana, and I'm easily convinced by anything. If people say that that is what they've seen when they nearly died, I believe them, even if it sounds scary, way out or impossible. Perhaps I am gullible. Some of you may even think, how stupid can one get? You have a brain, and you have to question every far-fetched story. And if you are very clever, you may want to disregard some of the stuff that can't be scientifically proven. But yet, I prefer to just believe instead of making everyone off as liars. I rather think of it as nothing is impossible. It is their truth. Besides, there is so much more to discover and so much to find out about the other side after our bodies are gone. I don't really ask questions or try to sound clever on the near-death groups on Facebook. I just read or listen and consider it as good material to broaden my own perspective on that topic. But I did it once, post something. It was after a story I listened to. I posted a question on the group in order to hear if anyone else, while having a near-death experience, felt as if they were trapped in their bodies, trying to tell the doctor or someone about it. The question on that group went viral. But let me start at the beginning, at the story that triggered my question. The cover reads, I was a funeral practitioner until a corpse broke me. This is Daniel Marsh's story in Dark Confessions. It's about a young woman who collapsed at her office. It was a heart attack. The medical staff caring for her declared her dead on arrival at the hospital and sent her to the morgue. From there, she's taken to the funeral home with her obituary, where he received her. His shocked parents arrived to choose a coffin. They brought clothes for her to wear during the viewing. It's an open coffin service, and it was arranged in the chapel for that following Monday. The eyes of the corpse were slightly open on arrival, which is not unusual. So Daniel, the funeral practitioner, squeezes them close. He does what is necessary before closing her body in the fridge, intending to embalm and dress her later. One of his female colleagues were with him when he opened the fridge later. Her eyes were open again, and then they started to film it. The longer they worked on her, the more they convinced they became that those eyes were following them. So they closed the eyes time and again. They even put something on the lids to keep them closed. According to Daniel, they took pictures and videos and recorded what they've seen as far as they've gone. They even considered getting a doctor in, though everything else suggested that the women were dead for quite a few hours by then. The next day, when they started with the embalming, the eyes opened again. By Monday, they heard a sound like breathing, although the chest was not moving. According to Daniel Marsh, she then asked, "Why don't you let me go? Why am I still here in my body?" For many, that sounds like a story an author like Roald Dahl may fabricate. But according to Daniel Marsh, he resigned from his job as a funeral practitioner after that incident, as everything he ever believed of death and dying changed over that weekend. He was devastated. He was done. If it happened, there may be a reason. It is written in the Bible that on the day Jesus Christ will appear on the clouds again, the tombs and the graves will open, and that people will rise from their coffins. Aren't they just obediently waiting there to be raised again in some sort of glorified body? It is written that life will be breathed into bones. So it is possible that some people may stay with their bodies, their bones, their ashes, inside the coffins they buried, or into something that's familiar until the second coming. But if you look at the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, just before his spirit left his body, he said to one of the murderers and sinners who hung beside him, "Tonight you will be with me in paradise." So you are allowed to move on to a better place. Just leave. Just follow the light. You don't have to stay with your body. But let's get back to Daniel Marsh's corpse that opened her eyes according to him. There are some people saying, yes, it's possible, but then it's a poltergeist, an evil spirit. They can move things. They can even harm you. They can do things with their body when they're dead. I don't agree. Not all of that strange and unexplained actions can be blamed on poltergeists. So I'm going to tell you a story that I saw with my very own eyes. It happened in Ypres, Flandre, on the Western Front, where about 1 to 3 million soldiers died in battles during World War I. At the time of our visit there, I watched 3 mannequins in a glass display cage, all dressed up in forms of the soldiers of that time. I walked as closely as I could to the glass and to look at the bullets and the bayonet holes in the fabric of the uniforms, and I decided that was probably the wounds that costed the bearers of the uniforms their lives. And then I looked up in the face of one of the mannequins and got the scare of my life when I looked into what was supposed to be the hard coldness of the glass eyes. The eyes suddenly started to move. It looked straight down at me. I stepped back at once and retreated to the right. The eyes turned, following me in that direction, and after that my every move. Maybe there is a security camera behind that eyes. A stranger who also saw what happened said, trying to comfort me and probably herself as well. And then one of the staff who was working there came over to us, and she said, "No, we have nothing like that in there. There's no security camera. But some of us that are working here also see that moving eyes from time to time. We even hear laughter when the place is quiet, laughter of young men. One explanation is that it is the ghosts of some of the young soldiers that died here that wouldn't leave. They probably stick together as a group of friends. We don't know how they do that, but they scare the living daylights out of many of our visitors when that eyes prank them. I suppose when you die young, for some it may be a good idea of a joke to get into a mannequin and move the eyes. Here I'm going to tell you another story as well, just an interesting story. I know a guy who was bitten by a mamba a few years ago. His heart rate went down to one faint movement per minute, and you couldn't see him breathing anymore. His body was paralyzed, seemed lifeless, yet he could hear every word that the people around him was saying. He was not outside his body, he was trapped inside. He tried to move a finger to tell the people around him that he could still hear them. He was still conscious. He just could not move or breathe, and his heart stopped. That is what mamba poison does to a body. It is neurotoxic. Our guy survived and told us the story later on, thanks to the aid of a heart and lung machine, and thanks to the fact that they can nowadays measure brain activity as well.